What up, y'all? This is Zabi D, founder of Organic Health Movement and host of the Deep Sea Dive podcast, checking in to share this beautiful, beautiful conversation I had with none other than Alice Waters. Alice is a chef, author, food activist, and the founder and owner of Chez Panisse Restaurant in Berkeley, California, which first opened its doors in 1971. She has been a champion of local sustainable agriculture for over 4 decades. In 1995, she founded the Edible Schoolyard Project, which advocates for a free organic school lunch for all children and a sustainable food curriculum in every public school. She has been vice president of Slow Food International since 2002. She conceived and helped create the Yale Sustainable Food Project in 2003 and the Rome Sustainable Food Project at the American Academy in Rome in 2007. Her honors include election as a Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2007, the Harvard Medical School's Global Environmental Citizen Award, which she shared with Kofi Annan in 2008, induction into the French Legion of Honor in 2010, and induction into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 2017. In 2015, she was awarded the National Humanities Medal by President Obama, proving that eating is a political act and that the table is a powerful means to social justice and positive change. I couldn't be more thrilled to have shared this beautiful podcast in this beautiful space with Alice, chatting about social responsibility, organic food, the future generation's health and well-being as a function of organic, sustainable, regenerative agriculture and our ability to infuse that value system into our public school system, and so much more. So sit back, relax, enjoy this beautiful podcast. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Alice Waters to Deep Sea Dive. It's such an honor and a pleasure. And, this conversation is just going to be so near and dear to my heart. So Alice, welcome.
Thank you so much. Really delighted to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So before we hopped on the podcast today, we were talking a little bit about this idea that time is of the essence, not only for climate, but for food as well. I had the sincere pleasure of growing up here in the Bay Area, and I think a part of the fabric of my identity is this strong sense of social responsibility in my actions and my thoughts and deeds. And having traveled the country and lived in a few other places, I realized that's not the norm. And as somebody who stands out as a pioneer in so many ways in this regard, I would love to hear your thoughts today in this unprecedented time around social responsibility and what it means to pioneer one's actions in the name of the environment, the planet, our soils, future generations.
Well, you probably know that I went to the University of California in the 60s. And in fact, I arrived at the campus in 1964 at the beginning of the free speech movement. And it was an incredible awakening for me because I didn't know anything about politics, really. I was a very innocent sort of student on the back of the movement there. And then I heard Mario Savio speak, and he said, you know, we can change the world. If we act together, we work together, we can change the world. And he was so eloquent in his speech. And he really spoke to me. He spoke to each one of us. I think he had great abilities to communicate the needs, the passion, the heart. I mean, he was Sicilian, so he had that about him, and that was very compelling. And we were successful in our free speech, but we stopped the war in Vietnam. And I have never lost my hopefulness. I think about that time, and it's what really is inside me now. I know we can make this happen. So I do see a silver lining. But it means that we really have to act together. And we can't we're all in different places right now. And we have to decide that we're going to collaborate in this way that we did back then. That we all had a part to play. Some people were willing to risk their lives. And maybe we'll come to that place again. We have come to that place again around Black Lives Matter. But we know that food is our universal place. We all have to eat. We all have to eat to live. Everyone on this planet has that in common. And the decisions we make every day either put us against the environment and against human values, or it supports it, the environment and human values. And I learned, well, more than 50 years ago, because I learned when I went to France when I was 19, how important and delicious those decisions could be. Now, I was in France when it was a slow food nation. There were farmers' markets in Paris in every neighborhood. Nobody went to supermarkets. No one. There weren't such a thing. I mean, maybe there was a drugstore someplace, or maybe there was, a hardware store. But people bought food in season, maybe twice a day, because they wanted to get the farmers at the market in the morning, and they might go before dinner. It was the way they thought about eating. And I was completely taken by that. It opened my mind to all of the beauty of the culture of France. It wasn't just about food. It was about this very big picture of nature in parks. It was about, the river. It was about the cathedrals. It was about music. It was about art. And when I came back, I wanted to live like the French. And I knew that food was primary. And at that time, I was very discouraged about the politics, the war in Vietnam. And I just thought, we'll just open a restaurant. And we can gather our friends. And we can eat differently, and we can live differently. And so that's what happened. And I couldn't find the food, of course.
Right.
It tasted like the French food. I didn't think about seasonality then. I didn't think about locality and aliveness of food. And it was taste that got me to the doorsteps of the local organic farmers and ranchers. And then the rest of the story.
So beautifully said. I've had such a pleasure over the last couple of years of surrounding myself in a community of like-minded individuals who value organic food. And that's pretty rare for my age group. It's something I never expected to happen.
But as you so eloquently share about your journey and traveling to France, discovering taste, discovering slow food, coming home, wanting to make that a difference in your community and gathering people around that, I think about how much of what I've learned is so much about what food to eat and how much of our culture has lost how to eat itself and that community orientation, the ability to sit with each other and to share love and those relationships that we cultivate, whether it be with a farmer or a rancher, and how incredibly valuable that has been to my journey in the last few years of reclaiming my own health. To know that there is a community that supports me in my value system, my ability to show up as my best self. And all these words bring to mind such a rich, rich journey that you've lived in helping us all at this point come to understand the value of organic food and what it means to truly create fresh taste, to create connection, harmony. And I know a lot of kids my age who are very, very gung-ho on the future, as you've said yourself, a lot of hope. And I'm wondering, for us young kids who've yet to have gone through some of the depths of what we're about to go through, are there any words of wisdom or any reflections that you've taken away from your spearheading of this movement that you think we could benefit from and integrate into our lives to make a difference as we go forward?
Absolutely. I've just completed a manuscript that's going to be published, I should say, a manifesto, in the spring or summer of this next year from Penguin Random House. And it's called We Are What We Eat. And I talk about how basically it kind of began in the 50s when we understood that, or some big companies understood that they could use advertising like we used during World War II to get people to buy fast food, to buy what they had to sell. And in doing that, sort of talking about the idea that food should be fast, cheap, and easy, that really changed the way that we ate. And the idea is that everything should be available all the time, 24/7. You should be able to get the avocado in the middle of winter in Denmark, and the same Starbucks cup of coffee, exactly the same, no matter where you are in the world. And we've taken that for granted, that it's okay to waste. There's always more where that came from. And we have been completely indoctrinated by fast, cheap, and easy. And we've lost our human values. It's okay to eat in the car. Can you imagine? There wasn't anybody who didn't come to the family table. Certainly in my time of growing up, there was not anybody who didn't eat at home around the table. And all of a sudden, that became too difficult and the fast food industry kind of preyed on the idea that women, have a lot to do, and let's make it easy for them to cook. Get that blender, get TV dinners in there. No worries. And we were so susceptible, and we just took it. And then we have become imprisoned, really imprisoned by the fact that we aren't connected to the natural world, to nature, to our mother, to to our friends, to our families. We're on the internet. Here we are trying to talk about food without tasting it. And so I really believe that we need an edible education from kindergarten, before kindergarten. And I was a Montessori teacher. So I've learned that the senses are our pathways into our minds. Seeing, tasting, hearing, smelling, touching are the pathways here. And so if we're not fine-tuning those, if we aren't smelling, really, if we're just eating quickly and tasting, we're not listening carefully, and we're not seeing anymore. We're just seeing what, the industry wants us to see. We're not using our minds to empower ourselves. And that's what I chose to do at the Edible Schoolyard Project 25 years ago, was to take that Montessori pedagogy and put it together with the garden and kitchen classrooms. Now, it wasn't to teach gardening or cooking. It was to teach the academic subjects. And their senses were being opened by planting seeds in a math class. My connection is unstable. What does that mean?
I'm hearing you loud and clear at the moment.
You're hearing me loud and clear. Good. Okay. Something's unstable came across. Anyway, so we did this project in one school, 1,000 kids, middle school children, very difficult, supposedly, to change their ways of eating. But we discovered that they love to be outside. Some of them have never been outside playing in grass, wanted to have boots on at the beginning. And then after 2 or 3 years, no more boots. They wanted to walk in the grass. And that they learned their academic subject much more easily. And so it worked like a charm. And I would say that in the years, there have been thousands of students, I guess 25,000 in the 25 years, that will go away with an understanding of where their food comes from and how to cook the simplest things, culturally diverse, and they'll have a memory of those classes for their whole lives. So I'm imagining that we could do this in the public school system, that we could buy our food differently, that we could actually use the public school system as an economic engine for regenerative organic farming and ranching. That we could really buy from people of all backgrounds. That we could, think about biodiversity, supporting all of the values that we really need to live on this planet together. Stewardship, nourishment, community, diversity are all embedded in food. And so that's my master plan, is to really engage at the University of California level. They have the research, they have the power, they have the procurement power to make this happen. And if they did it there, K through 12 would follow. But all the time, every day, every young person, everybody who cares about the environment can say, where did this come from? Who grew it? Is it in season? Am I supporting the values that we need to live on this planet together? And it's not unaffordable. And I discovered I'm writing 2 books. The second book is School Lunch. And I'm using the USDA reimbursement to make all of the meals. And if you know how to cook, just basic things, know how to saute greens, how to use the stems of the chard, how to make a chicken, an organic chicken that's expensive, how to make that 3 meals. And I always say Jose Andres knows how to make 6 out of an expensive chicken. Now, we've lost our desire and our knowledge of cooking, because the fast food world wants to think of it as drudgery, cooking and farming as drudgery, and we've kind of been brainwashed. But guess what? It's a huge pleasure. And I dug up my front garden and planted a victory garden because at the beginning of the pandemic, I was worried that I wasn't going to have salad and herbs. And I wanted to make sure I had them. And we can plant wherever we are. We can start community gardens, because that is the most affordable way to eat, if you're willing to put in that energy. And I'm very much in favor of finding public lands that we can plant on together. And I think that's something that can happen from the University of California's commitment to regenerative organic food. And all of it is the hopeful scenario about climate. I mean, taste is about seasonality. And when we did that at Chez Panisse many, many years ago, we thought we were denying ourselves not to have, these things available all the time. We wanted raspberries all the time and strawberries, and we wanted salmon all the time. And then when we were buying salmon from Alaska and so that we would have it year round, we didn't appreciate when it was local. And when we decided to make that commitment for environmental reasons, it was a commitment to taste. Because when that salmon comes around, I eat it every single day. It's like tomatoes. And when they're over, they're over. But I don't want to subject myself to second-rate taste all year long. I want it when it happens. And you can do this no matter where you live, even in Maine. I mean, you're going to need a greenhouse so you can have some salad and herbs. And you can grow that organically and regeneratively in Maine. And you have to think about storage Squash. I have this wonderful squash to show you.
Gorgeous.
It's a tramboncini squash from a Sicilian varietal.
Incredible.
Can you believe
Incredible. It's just magnificent.
It's so beautiful. It's almost like a necklace. And I saw this first in Sicily, in the marketplace, and I carried it around. And then somebody at a farm up north planted this and brought it down to me. So biodiversity is so beautiful and important during a season. I mean, we have carrots now in 8 or 10 different colors. So all of a sudden, winter is beautiful, like summer tomatoes. And you can have a salad one day that's yellow and red. A carrot salad another day could be purple and white. And that is what interests me so much, is the biodiversity that is available to us. How many kinds of dried beans are there? Hundreds of varietals. There really are. And so that we can really find something that's so nutritious, like greens, beans, and squash, just for a start. I mean, all the beautiful colors of corn. Wow. And then the making of tortillas, the process of doing that is so, again, so therapeutic, because your hands are your instruments of your mind. They're working. They're not just on the keyboard. They're feeling the weight. They're feeling, you're calculating these things. You're pounding the garlic. You're smelling that. You're using your mortar and pestle. And you're understanding garlic in another dimension. And that's the subtlety that is so, what would I say, gratifying to me, is the range of beauty in food and in technique. I'm making my own mayonnaise in about 3 minutes. I'm engaged with it, and it's so simple. I can't imagine anybody buying mayonnaise. I can't. It's like, it's something that we've been doing for a very long period of time. It's almost like inside our genes. It's only been 60 years since we haven't been doing this. We've been doing it before. And so those foods that are even, I feel like the Middle East has brought tastes of food into this country, even to children who couldn't have imagined ever eating a kale salad or a whole wheat pita bread or hummus. Now, where did that come from? That came from a deep knowledge somehow of around taste, around nourishment. And there's a whole world of that food for us to explore and be nourished by.
So exceptionally beautiful. I think so much of this community I've mentioned, of really passionate health coaches and medical providers and athletes, personal trainers, and their heart is so in the right place. But even in our community, where the focus is creating that experience, the nuance and the beauty of what you describe in so many ways has been lost. And you bring such a potent reminder to my own lifestyle as well, that the creation of these experiences, the sensation, the touch, the feeling, that pathway into the mind is what sparks the ability to live a meaningful life. As you know, I created Organic Health Movement to be a united movement of inspired self-masters that lead with compassionate action and relentless self-love, both to self and to the environment, to each other. And please.
I was just going to say that I've never wanted to use the word health, because I feel like health is the outcome of living well. And I feel like it's been so kind of manipulated by the fast food industry that we don't know that health begins in the ground, in the soil. That's where it really begins. We're only now understanding that our guts are kind of like a plant in a rich, healthy soil, that our guts work that way, that the food that we eat is absorbed in the way that a plant absorbs the nutrients around it. And I feel so related to the plant now. I get it. It's regenerative in the best possible way. It can actually really restore our immune systems. Can you imagine? And that there's something that we can do that tastes great, that is addressing climate, and that's restoring our immune systems. And we aren't doing it. And it's just, I mean, that's the beauty of it.
Exceptionally well said.
I interrupted you.
No, that was a purposeful interruption. That was great. And, you know, when I think about our gut microbiome and the soil, and you mentioned genes and how it's in our genes to create these experiences and these memorable moments. So too is it natural that the earth would provide all the components of health that our system would need. And as you've said, we've lost touch with that tremendously. And we've forgotten our ways. We don't live close to the earth. We live close to screens, and we live close to cell phone towers. And I can't mention the amount of people who have probably not taken a walk through nature or the woods in a long time. And, you know, fortunately, I grew up here in the Bay Area where that's commonplace. And I look at so many different components of the future generations that need that access. And I just want to say thank you for your work with Edible Schoolyard to create that opportunity for education and connection that's absent from our public school system. And using that as an economic driver of this movement is brilliant. It's beautiful.
Well, the lunch is already there at the school system. And if we were just to change from fast food to slow food, those values just come through the cafeteria door, like they did to Chez Panisse, right through the kitchen door. But it's something that I discovered can be scaled just not through a desire for ownership or to have your network, but just because people want to share their values that they have in common. There are almost 7,000 people on on our Edible Schoolyard Project website. Now, where did they come from? I have no idea, but they're all around the world. And there are 800 in California. Now, who knows what they're doing? But they believe in these values of stewardship, nourishment, and community. So they're doing something that relates. And maybe they have cafeterias, maybe they have kitchen or garden classrooms, who knows? But it's something that is just so needed, and people feel that, and it just happens. So it kind of and it scales that way. It's like I can't think of the exact right metaphor right now for it, but it's kind of irresistible. And I always want to take food with me wherever I go, always citrus at this time. And I just put it on the table and we have a meeting. And people eat these kishus. And they don't forget. They say, what is this? Where did it come from? How can I get some? I send them to people I'm trying to influence in the middle of winter in Washington, D.C. I call it kishu diplomacy. And I'm trying to reach people in another dimension. And that's what food can do. It's reaching them in that fundamental place. And it takes them by surprise because aromas, and I always wanted the restaurant to smell good. So we always were making bread or pizzas in a wood oven. So people would say, what is that? What is that? I want to go there. They didn't know. I'd always have beautiful flowers and food. They'd come and they'd see that, and they could look in the kitchen. And they said, what? What's happening? Oh, I can walk in the kitchen. I can watch what's going on. Again, I was very much in Montessori thinking, preparing the classroom so that the students would fall in love with learning. It had to be beautiful. And what more beautiful classroom could there be than nature? And that's the other part, is our kitchens have to feel good to be in. I wish I had a fire in my fireplace right now. It's too early in the morning to start it and keep it going all day. But I use that fireplace to make an aroma in my house, or I put on a chicken soup because I know my daughter's coming home tonight and I want the house to smell good, and she will feel that. And those are ways we can all reach not only our children, but our friends and our families.
So beautiful. I think it touches my heart in a way that reminds me so much of how deeply intertwined we all really are, and how powerful our personal responsibility really can become when taken in light of the whole world.
We look back to times when we really came together, and when I think back to World War II because my father was engaged and fortunately on the home front. But my parents planted a Victory Garden at that time. And we didn't have much money. We were a family of 6. And it grew enough food. So my mother could store it through the winter. She made applesauce and rhubarb. And she wasn't a good cook, but she knew that we needed to preserve that food. And it fed us all summer long. I still can taste the tomatoes and the corn from New Jersey, which were exceptional. And they had a garbage can that was this big for a family of 6. And they recycled all the newspapers, all the tin cans. Of course, that all came from World War II. And I think to the Conservation Corps that we started, the Green New Deal talks about that. But we need more than victory gardens and Green New Deals right now. We need a real Green New Deal in the public schools. We need a united effort to teach the values that we have lost. And I can only promise that in doing it, that you will fall in love with nature and beauty and friendship and a desire to live your life differently, because it works like that. It goes very deep inside. You digest this, and it's our silver lining of this pandemic.
I think about how influential you've been in my life thus far with food, and what a difference it's made in my life to make these changes. The doors it's opened, the connections it's created, and the ability to relate on a deep level, as you mentioned, that was previously unknown and difficult to access. And I think about the communities that I've been intertwined with for a few years now. And I just have so much hope as well, and so much excitement. And as you said, gratitude, a sense of being cherished by each and every person who shows up to make this difference. And I've always known that there's meant to be a tip of the cap to so many figures. And I certainly tip my cap to you in this regard, because those value systems that are the natural extension, as you mentioned, not the preconceived notion, but the natural extension of this connection, have made such a beautiful and huge difference in my life and created long-lasting friendships, health, well-being. It's an extension of this, not as the primary driver. And that, to me, is magic.
Indeed.
Well, Alice, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time today to join me here and to share the fruits of your incredible journey. And forward looking, I'm so excited to see how this transforms on a global and local level. You have my vow that I will do everything to make this happen. And in the meantime, I truly, truly, deeply, deeply appreciate the love that you've created within these communities and the way that you've spearheaded this movement, because it's bar none absolutely beautiful and absolutely needed. And there's so much benefit.
So much, as you know, probably, that I call this a delicious revolution because it is not hard to do. It's really changed my life in that incredible way, and I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.